Hey everybody, I'm back here again today to look at maybe an artist some of you haven't heard of. His name is Medasin. He just came out with his new album, his debut album, as an EDM producer called Irene. Throughout the past several years, he's just been kind of dropping singles left and right, just SoundCloud, on Spotify, just kind of wherever. And most notably, there's been Daydreams featuring Joba from Brockhampton. There's also been Coffee featuring Masigo, I believe is how you pronounce his name. And then also Portugal the Man's Feel It Still. He did a very popular remix on that as well. And then the one other actual formed piece of work he's done in the past was the Pink Polo EP with Masago. And that had relative success as well, so that was kind of somewhere where it kind of brought his name to new light, got a lot of people recognizing and seeing who he is. And he has done like just kind of random mixes and stuff in the past, and most recently the Irene .5 mixtape that kind of led up to the actual album. So the album kicks off with the song Weird Summer. It's only like a minute or so. It's just an intro track, but it really does a good job of putting you in the feel of what's to come. The album definitely has a certain aesthetic and vibe of it, and this song definitely puts you in there, makes you know where you're going to be for the next while. And another big part about this, it really shows the great sounds Medasin has, the synths and just everything. They sound so perfectly crafted, it's absolutely gorgeous. But about this track in particular, it has these kind of like deep kicks kind of that go along with the synths, and then all of a sudden they kind of get closer and closer, but almost like underwater. You're kind of like in some sort of submarine and there's stuff going on around you. It's really hard to kind of put it into words because I've never really had to describe something like this before. It's a really unique sound and feel that I don't really think anybody's really explored into like this. Then the first actual full song on the album is Ramen, and Ramen has a very light, happy melody with these really extremely rubbery synths, and it's soon matched by these chords, and it's really kind of a unique feeling that isn't heard exactly like this anywhere else throughout the album, even though some places it might be a little similar. And a warping bass and a really wiry, soft synth turn up and give the song a completely unparalleled feel. And all this really comes together about a minute and a half where everything just hits perfectly, and it comes in and it's like it's truly like a moment of ecstasy on the album. The following track, Leaving Earth 2, starts off with some kind of Gregorian chants or something, and like it's a little creepy almost. It kind of threw me off at first, and then there's like some footsteps that come up, and then you hear like the slice of a sword or a knife or something stabbing or slicing into somebody, and then it kind of turns into the regular song, or what the song's supposed to be. And the song's just really a chill, laid-back beat with some synths. Kind of like the general vibe of the album is really in the essence of the song. What makes this song cool in itself, though, is it has this kind of like fade and then bounce back, a push and pull almost, where all the noises will start to just kind of drop and go away, and then we'll all come back at a hit, and it really just makes for a good like ocean effect. There's some chimes and some clangs too that really kind of give the song some real depth, and beyond just kind of being a one layer just of the synths, and these really kind of make you see more of what's going on in the song. But the problem I do have with it, though, is it doesn't really evolve the entire time. Like, obviously, instrumentals, you can do any amount of instrumentals in any number of ways, but the song stops at a build and then just kind of repeats this kind of push and pull effect that I was talking about, where it kind of fades and then comes back. And it is cool, but I don't feel it has a lot of re-listenability to it, and especially when an album is kind of very instrumental like this, where there's not a lot of songs with the lyrics and stuff, the instrumentals do kind of have to be ever-changing and can't really get old. Warm Blue starts off with some of the most gorgeous synths on the entire album, and it's probably one of the most laid-back soundtrack or songs on the album, as it kind of sounds like an anime soundtrack song, almost kind of like at the intro of one, and it's kind of a cool, unique experience. But like Leaving Earth 2, I do kind of have this feeling where it's cool to listen to a few times, but eventually it's just going to become dry because there isn't that much changing throughout the entire song, and it's not something that is really going to bring me as a listener to come back and be like, damn, this was one of the tracks I really wanted to re-listen to. Then Slinky Man comes, and this kind of changes the feel of the album, or the vibe of the album. It still kind of has this kind of chill, laid-back sense to it, but it is much more upbeat and a bit more in your face as well. It's like some of the more hype, all the more hype songs are more here at the end, and the first portion of the album was kind of just like an intro, or just a chill kind of understanding what's going to happen later on. There's a really cool like laser sound that kind of happens in the song over and over, and it is really kind of a neat point. And there's also this amazingly mixed vocal sample on this track that sounds like from the 1900s. It really, the sounds on this aren't much different from what I've already talked about. They are just in a much more upbeat and in your face, abrasive, if that's not really the right word, but kind of right there in front of you type feel. And the vocals, though, I can't find the sample anywhere, or I couldn't see it anywhere, but it sounds like some kind of foreign language from the 1900s maybe, and it really kind of brings the track to a whole new level compared to what else we have been listening to in this album so far, considering everything else hasn't really been that sample heavy, or that I've noticed like as much as this track. Work For You really comes in as the big addition on this album. Like for me, it's probably my favorite track. It does have vocals, which makes it, to me, honestly I prefer vocal tracks, but obviously instrumentals I can get with too. I mean, the following track in this album is also one of my favorites. I love it a lot, but this one really kind of brings Medasin into a kind of an actual, real, completed form, like regular form of a song. Like it sounds like it'd be a pop song or something, but it's not pop, it's Medasin style. And it has this really kind of slicey synth that just goes back and forth. It pans between your ears over and over. It has, I believe, Kaz Moon featuring on it, who has a gorgeous voice, and it really all just complements each other great. He uses this kind of fuzzy bass, which isn't really common I don't think is common for Medasin to use. These kind of more fuzzier sounds are normally much cleaner and like warbly or morphed. And so it kind of is, it's a definite standout on the album, but yet still fits in very well. And I'm also a big fan of the ambient noise he uses all throughout the album. I believe earlier in the album somewhere he just includes like some sort of conversation, but it's mixed so low that you can't even hear what they're saying or anything, but you can definitely hear like a conversation somewhere in the distance. And on this song in particular, there's like seagulls and stuff, and it really gives like the song some atmosphere, like a bit more than just what you're hearing. Home is the only track I believe that made it onto the album that was from the Irene .5 mixtape, and it features this woman vocalizing, and it really all just comes together to build this true culmination of what Medasin can really do with his sounds at like full force. And I completely understand why he would bring this song from the mixtape onto the album, because this truly is an album level song, and it fits perfectly well with everything else on here. There's a plucking going on, and there's a chord that comes, or a synth that comes in, that really eerily matches. It's so close that it's a very unique sound to have something that's authentic, that's real, that is also matched by something that is completely just made by a fake a DAW or something like that. And it really kind of threw me off a little bit, but kind of in a good way when I first heard it, because it's a really unique sound that I hadn't really experienced before the song. And there's also, at the end, to keep it interesting with the final kind of outro section here, they add a wiry twang to it that gives it a bit more feel and elevates it to something where you feel like you haven't already heard it, even though you pretty much have. And then just before the outro is the song Tired, featuring Sophie Myers. And honestly, this is my least favorite song on the album. I had a hard time being entertained for this song on almost every listen on the same level as the rest of the album. Everything else I was loving the beginning to end, or I was at least attentive. And this one, my mind kind of started to drift. It didn't seem as interesting or engaging as a lot of the other songs. And it doesn't really have, the instrumental doesn't really have anything that great or new that is a good addition to the song either. Like, it has some synths that you've heard, or this has one synth in particular that you've kind of heard throughout the albums here and there, so it's not really anything new in that perspective. And the beat definitely does keep the feel, the vibe of the album alive, but it doesn't really bring anything new. The vocals are pretty great. Sophie does have an amazing voice that she definitely displays greatly in the song, but it doesn't really have anything catchy or memorable about any of the verses or choruses. The only thing that really made me remember what was and wasn't is the additional layer of her voice on the chorus. If it wasn't for that, I really just would have gotten lost in the song and probably not even realized there was one. And then finally there's Finn, the outro track, which kind of has a unique stuttering synth that kind of just like flips then into sounds we've kind of heard prior on the album, and it's a good sound. It's just a simple minute outro track, and it kind of just ends up bringing up the album to a close. It's just a decent, good way to finish an album. Medasin definitely took a different approach to this, not really having drops anywhere that much, but more so using the instrumentals as ways to keep the listener engaged in what else is going on with the song, even in just the instrumental tracks, if that really makes sense. It wasn't really all about those big moments, but it was about the entire experience of the album, which I feel an EDM artist should do, and Medasin definitely has realized that and followed through with that. And one way that I feel a lot of artists or EDM artists have a problem developing their sound is that they think, oh, I actually have to change my sound in order to appeal and keep evolving. But really, I feel like your sound as an EDM artist is like your voice. Like Medasin takes, and that's what Medasin does, is that he takes those signature sounds that he has, and instead of completely using new sounds, he uses those sounds in a different way, in a kind of not different genre, but and pushes them as something else. And that is really what makes it so great. I mean, all these beautifully crafted synths and chords and all this would be for nothing if Medasin just kind of threw away that style and went on to something else that he doesn't have a lot of experience in. And Medasin also definitely shows a ton of attention to keeping the listener immersed into the album, as like every single song definitely you feel it instead of just listen, and you're really there in the music and not standing at from an outside perspective. For re-listenable tracks, Work For You is my favorite track, so it's obviously going to be a lot really re-listenable for me with the vocals and the unparalleled, unmatched instrumental that's on it. But I feel a lot of the rest of the album does kind of suffer a little bit from blending too much, especially the first half. The second half isn't as dramatic with this as the first, but I could just kind of not recognize some of them, or recognize them but not remember which is which, and they can get a little mixed up just because they do kind of not have a lot of those samples or recognizable signature things that all the other songs do in the second half of the album. But overall, this is a really solid album from Medasin, and definitely pushes EDM for being a more respected genre from the masses. And to me, really, this album is a 7. So you guys should let me know what I should review next. You should like the video and also subscribe, and tell me what you thought of this album if you've heard it. And if you haven't, you should definitely should go listen, because Medasin, I feel like, is somebody that could like, I don't like saying this, but like be the next Flume, in a sense of being the next top level where a ton of people respect this artist. So please go check out this album, and I'll talk to you guys next time.